signed you. I've just been reading a lot of your stuff. I'm very impressed with what you do. Very inspiring. Definitely going down the route that I want to do. I hit the nail on the head with a good interview. You opened your restaurant at age 24. That must have been quite a big achievement in itself.
Yeah, it was. I spent 4.5 years working for a chef called Sean Hill, who owned a restaurant called the Merchant House in Ludlow, and it had a Michelin star, and it was a very tiny restaurant. There was literally Sean cooking, his wife did pastry, and I did everything else, and I used to help with the veg prep and the fish cookery and make the cocktails and do the service and answer the phone. It was really, all hands on deck. And Ludlow is a very busy town when it comes to food, and we were fully booked. We had 7 tables. We were fully booked about 6-7 months ago. There was never any opportunity from a very young age for, you can't let them. If I wasn't there, life would have been much harder for both Sean and Anya.
Yeah.
And Anya always had, so we very much worked together all the time for kind of 4.5 years. And I think that set me up in a good position to open a restaurant at 24 in terms of work ethic, which is really important. Getting the funding at 24 is much harder. Claude was 26 at the time. We actually met in my old restaurant. He came for dinner. He was only supposed to be in the UK for 6 months, but he
ended up staying a bit longer.
He came for dinner, and then it just seemed to be a natural progression that we opened a place together. But at 24 and 26 years old, you earn money and you spend it. So we've never had a situation where we were saving to buy a restaurant, and therefore getting funding to open a restaurant at 24 was very hard. But yeah, it was. All my friends at the time were going on 3 or 4 day festivals, or going backpacking around the world, or going out on big clubbing nights, and I would just be there polishing glasses at 1 o'clock in the morning. But it was worthwhile. With hindsight, it was worthwhile.
Oh, definitely. I see that you also work at 3 different magazines now as well.
Yeah, that's right. So originally, when Hibiscus was sold in 2017, the magazine had been called just Chef Magazine, but it had run into a lot of problems with the administration that were running it before. But 2 businessmen, one was already a publisher, but in the beauty industry, saw what the magazine could potentially be, and in 2017 contacted me and said, look, we've taken this magazine under acquisition. We don't know anything about the industry. We know that you've just got rid of a restaurant. And I used to do a lot of copywriting for the restaurants. I did a lot of PR. I did, if ever we had to write menus or press releases and stuff like that, I'd done it, and they'd seen that. And they said, would you be interested in coming on as editor and then shareholder, and try and get this magazine up to where it should be, because it's very glossy, it's very attractive, it's a different type of magazine. And I just said, absolutely, as long as we can make it into the best magazine out there, because that's the nature of how I work, is always improving and being different to everybody else. So joined in 2017, and then we had an interview in 2018 with a fantastic chef called Paul Liebrandt. Not Paul Liebrandt, it was, his name's going to come back to me. Paul Liebrandt is a friend in New York, hang on. Frederick Veselius.
Yeah.
We had an interview with Frederick Veselius, he's got a restaurant in Brooklyn, as an international chef in the UK magazine. And when we sent him the magazine over, he really, really loved what we'd done. And then a conversation arose between us and Frederick was saying, we don't have anything like this in New York. And I was like, well, that's ridiculous, you must have. And he said, no, we don't have a magazine like your magazine out in New York at all. Would you be interested in doing one? So I went to a board meeting and I said to the other directors, I said, it appears that there's no magazine like this out in New York. And it appears there's an appetite for it, because we'd already started to get people subscribing to the UK magazine in America. And so Martin and David, who are the other directors of the magazine, they just said, you know what, if you think it's a goer, let's do some exploration. So I went over to New York with the managing director, with one of our photographers, with one of our writers, We went over for 3 days, visited so many chefs, so many businesses, so many places, and they were just all hands up. We love this magazine and we want to have this in New York. So then we decided that we'd have a UK version and a New York version, which has been really, really great. And then with perfect timing in March this year, because we then started to get a lot of people from the Middle East, Saudi Arabia or Dubai, they were then subscribing to either the UK or New York or both magazines. And then we had a couple of conversations with chefs out in Dubai and KSA going, we don't have anything like this. So we launched our Middle East title in March, it went absolutely brilliantly. We were due to be monthly for June. We mothballed that until October, so we picked Middle East back up again in October. It was horrible, but yeah, magazines.
That is insane. It's crazy to see how far hospitality can take you in the aspects of, like, you wouldn't necessarily, you think that automatically you're just going to go into a restaurant or hotel, but here you are going to, like, New York, Abu Dhabi, like these different places, which is insane.
Yeah, I've always said there are so many avenues from hospitality. You know, it gives you the best skills in terms of you can talk to people, and that in a lot of, you know, in a lot of arenas, being able to communicate with people. And also, I think people who work in hospitality are naturally creative anyway. And once you've got that confidence, you can communicate, you can turn your hand to working in the kitchen, to polishing the glasses, to writing a press release, to developing a business plan, to come up with new product developments and you know, and look at ingredients, think, well, you know, how would that really benefit the kind of general public if it was, you know, if you could take a food service idea and then turn that into what could be a supermarket idea. The possibilities are limitless. If you just said to me in 2000 when I opened Viscous, you know, in 20 years' time you'll be running 3 magazines, I would have, well, I wouldn't have had time because it was, you know, it's really busy. And when you're in that work zone in the industry, it's very difficult to kind of look at anything externally, which is why I do a lot of running every single day. I'm like Forrest Gump. And it's within that time that I'm running that's where all my creative ideas now for the magazine. And I've been in touch with so many chefs and businesses throughout COVID and trying to give them, you know, ideas and what they could be doing and things that they could be, you know, looking at. And it's been a really interesting period of time for creativity for COVID. It really has.
So I also heard that you mentioned you run 10k every day. I understand that physical health is quite important to you as well, but would you say that, what would you say to help with mental health being in this hospitality industry? How important would you say that would be?
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? I'm guilty of the fact in the 17 years that I ran Hibiscus, I definitely didn't go outside into the fresh air enough. I was, you know, we were in the building at 7 o'clock in the morning, and some days we wouldn't finish till 2 o'clock in the morning. And because we were young and you know, we borrowed the money to open the restaurant, and we wanted to make sure we paid it back as quickly as possible. So we you know, there were some seasons where we opened 7 days a week, and you know, you get to Wednesday and you don't know if it's Saturday, and I was definitely guilty of almost, you know, I could have burnt out. It's only been since in the last kind of 5 years that I've realised how beneficial it is to have fresh air. You know, and you know, it wasn't just us. I mean, we had limited staff at Hibiscus in Ludlow, certainly in Mayfair, much more day, but you know, they were working the same hours we were working, and actually there is nothing better than getting out, doing some physical activity, your mental well-being, and not just for the endorphins, but it just, for me, it kind of feels like it frees up my brain and allows new ideas to come through. And my managing director, you know, I go out for a run and I come back on my phone and go, oh, I've had an idea, and he's like, oh God, now what? Because that's just when and it is time consuming, because you have to kind of find that kind of hour and 15 minutes every day, and then you know, you have to shower afterwards and get dressed and everything. So it takes an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes out of your day, but but actually, and it's something you have to work at. So there have been days when I've actually had to get up an hour and a half earlier to be able to get my run in because I've got such a busy day, or I'm up on the road commuting or something. But it is worthwhile to having that discipline and making sure. I mean, in the summer, I mean, for example, at the moment, I probably run about 8:30 at night because it's still light and I can, and I've done a working week. But as long as I get that time in, it's definitely more beneficial. And it helps with the creative process, it helps with problem solving, and I don't run with anybody except my dog. I have my headphones on, music on, and you just go for it. And now I feel like a complete failure if I miss a day.
So how did you get involved with Toque? Did they sort of contact you? Because I know that your CV is insane.
Well, so Toque is a competition that I've always looked at for a long time. I do a lot of work, and I've done a lot of work over 3 years in Westminster Kingsway College, and so I probably spend a day every 2 or 3 weeks at Westminster. It's an incredible resource for all things, actually. I've taken really great chefs into the college who have just gone, I had no idea it was like this here. But through becoming friends and talking to some of the students, I'm friends with all the chef lecturers, I kind of started to see from the grassroots how important the competition process is. And it's something that, again, I'm guilty of. When we had the Hibiscus, I didn't encourage anybody to take any competitions because as an employer, you're like, I really don't want them to lose the time or be distracted on something. And that's the wrong approach. Employers are now definitely embracing competitions a lot more. So I'd always known about the competition, and then having listened to chef lecturers, you know, talking about or mentoring their students, and listening to interviewing some of their ex-students about the competitions that they've really enjoyed, Toque always came out as one that they'd really enjoyed. And then, you know, you do a bit of research and you realise that Toque values are very much aligned with my own personal values and the values of the magazine, in terms of, you know, it's not just all about the latest 2 or 3 Michelin starred chef, and you know, we have a lot of these guys in the magazine, but we also champion future talent as much as possible, because without future talent there's no future, and a competition is a great way of doing it. So yeah, I think I'd always been intrigued, always watched it, further spiked by listening to people at Westminster, and then I think I dropped them an email and just said, come on, let's do some things together, because our values are very aligned.
So what would you say, how important has social media played a role in sort of keeping hospitality relevant through this COVID-19 crisis that we've been in?
Yeah, definitely. It's been not only relevant, but in terms of the well-being of industry workers, it's been super important, because, I mean, you know, the hospitality industry, it can be long hours, it could be long days, it can be, you know, you can go into work and think, oh, it's too hot, I don't want to be here. But at the end of the day, it's about a brigade and it's about a team, and you're used to working with people all the time. You know, you go to work, you see a lot of people, you might just say hello and ignore somebody, but you've got that feeling that you're part of a team and part of a brigade. And so in my opinion, for the industry to suddenly say to everybody, go home and stay at home, it was so alien that feeling of brigade wasn't there. So we started doing, I've been on the phone to chefs throughout COVID. They've just been ringing me, whether they've been angry or sad or excited or whatever. But then we also started to do quite a lot on social media as well, both publicly and privately on Zoom. We had some kind of great meetups on Zoom, and just encouraged everybody to keep in touch with everybody else, and to feel that you're still part of this bigger picture, which is hospitality. And there's so many cliches, oh, we're in this together, but we are all in this together. And it's an industry which relies on support. You know, head chef relies on the support of his sous chef, relies on the support of the chef de partie, relies on the support of the commis chef. Everybody relies on the support of the kitchen porters, and that we're supported by nature. We're a supportive industry. So social media has been really important to keep relevant. And I have to say, hands up, I've phoned a couple of chefs and said, you're not doing anything on social, stop disappearing. Even if you take a picture of a daisy, put it on social to remind people that you're there. And there have been some great guys that have done Instagram cook-alongs, and they've done recipe boxes, and then they've done a film on Instagram when you cook along with the chef, and it's been really important to keep that, and it's going to be even more important now, because I mean, from what I'm seeing, rural restaurants are doing well, and smaller towns and villages and pubs seem to be doing okay, but in the city there's going to be a fight for business. So they need, all of these city restaurants need to be as relevant as they can be now, because if there's going to be a fewer footfall in terms of commuters, in terms of people going into the cities, they need to be doing as much as they can to get those customers in. But it's been what we would have done without Zoom or social media in the last. I just don't know.
No, I completely agree. It's been strange because I've been coming from like a student sort of point of view, so it's been weird going from like 4 or 5 days a week going to college and then also working on a weekend to having nothing, which is, for people in hospitality, we're so used to having that day in, day out, and then to be sort of cut off and isolated from everyone, it is such a different and bizarre place to be in. But I'm glad that everybody sort of, for the most people that I've followed, or even other bigger chef names as well, they've kept in touch with social media, just so that you know that they are still there, like you said. But
you're completely right. I mean, it's absolutely alien for our industry to be isolated away from each other. Even though we complain about it in ordinary times, we're always complaining about it. Actually, it's just, I genuinely think it's part of somebody who's going to do really well in hospitality. It's almost like it's part of their DNA, this ability to be able to work with people day in, day out, long hours, evenings, weekends, holidays. It develops bonds, which are, I don't think there are many industries that have that kind of bonds. Maybe NHS workers, again, working in smaller teams, they have that kind of bond. But there's definitely something very special about people who work in hospitality, and that was our biggest concern right from the very outset, because as soon as, when Boris Johnson said don't eat out, we haven't shut the UK down, in that week my phone was ringing off the chefs going, Claire, what's happening? And they were really, really worried. And one of our biggest worries was their mental health. I was sat there thinking, there's going to be an awful story is going to come up somewhere along the lines with this, but it hasn't. And everybody's been great. I've seen it myself. I've seen chefs, having chats with other chefs, and I said I've done lots of Instagram lives, and there's been a lot of camaraderie and this support for each other, which is so important, and it's a lovely thing to witness, even though through horrible circumstances. It was a great thing to see that actually the industry does pull together when it needs to.
No, completely. Who would you say that, from you've interviewed so far, who would you say would be one of your top interviews that you've sort of gotten a bit more in-depth information on what you sort of perceived who they were, and really their complete opposite?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Let me think.
Because I feel like sometimes with chefs, they tend to be very, like, you just see, like, say if it was like Gordon Ramsay, you just see this really angry person, and then you see him on Instagram or TikTok with his daughter. He's lovely.
He's a really lovely guy. Yeah, I mean, the thing with the interviewing in the magazine is that I'm really strict about what the interviewing process is like. And we've got some brilliant writers, and I just don't want to hear. I used to cook cookies with my grandmother, and I really like the village market, and I grow my own turnips, and we actually want to get right into the very soul of what makes that chef tick, and whether it's good things, whether it's bad things. We try to get the most honest interview that we can get from that chef, and that's why sometimes there's a few bad words in some of the articles. But yeah, I mean, every chef somewhere inside of them has got a story, and or got something to say which is different to what you see in a lot of other press. And even if they're on Saturday Kitchen, it always tends to be the same kind of consumer-driven interviewing, but I'm not interviewing for Mr. and Mrs. Smith up the road who watch Saturday Kitchen. I'm interviewing for peers, and peers want to know what makes that chef tick. So yeah, but I mean they've all been really interesting. Sat Baines is fascinating guy. Johannes from Sketch. Claire Smythe has got some brilliant things to say. They've all got their own stories, so it'd be really difficult to pinpoint one, because the nature of what we do is we try and find out as much as possible of things that we can tell you guys that you may not know about them.
What would you say for the future of social media? What would you say the next thing? Because I'd seen quite a lot of different sort of platforms like Scottish Chefs or BBC Good Food. They've started podcasts. I think that's quite a big step. Would you ever see more magazines or interviews sort of going more down that route?
Yeah, we're definitely going to be complementing the magazine with more things like that. And we've done a lot through COVID. All the kind of market research we get back from the printed magazine is that the chefs love it. Have you seen a copy of the printed magazine?
Scenes on it. We have a whole, like, when you first go into the college, they just have all these different magazines lined up, and they're just like, please, free, it's free. And I'm like, yes, please, thank you.
So because of the, I think you can see it, but because of the, again, I'm a real pain when it comes to print quality. So we've always, the print quality has got to be super, super top. So what has happened is that chefs now, on the spine, we've got the edition month and number and everything. Chefs now collect magazines, and they really, really want them. So, you know, so specialist print media is still going very, very strong. Don't get me wrong, it's been tough over COVID, and the first decision, again, that we took in the very beginning was that we would continue to print through COVID, come hell or high water, and we did. But so we will definitely continue always with the printed magazine and the digital magazine, but also, you know, we work with some great filmmakers and videographers and photographers, and yeah, we are definitely going to be doing more podcasts and films, and because often the films, you know, if we go to a supplier and we do a film, I'll take a videographer and a cameraman with me, but we also manage to get content for the magazine as well. So you're kind of ticking two boxes at the same time. And in terms of the industry, I mean, it's been really interesting to see how many chefs are coming out of COVID with another business. So there are some chefs that remodeled to do takeaway during COVID and had such a demand for it that coming out of COVID, when their restaurants have reopened, they're still going to carry on to do takeaway. I really, really liked the Instagram cook-alongs. Not very many chefs did it, but quite a few did, and I thought that was that is really a really interesting platform. The idea that you subscribe to a meal kit, be sent to your house, you log on to Michael O'Hare at 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night, and he'll be cooking a dish and you can follow it. And I think there's definitely a great future in that, and that could in a way replace quite a lot of TV cookery, because it's more real time, and also that people feel like they're actually, you know, I don't know about you, but I watch some cookery programs and I go, yeah, that looks lovely, never make it. yeah, James Martin, that looks amazing, never gonna make it. Never.
I've still got stuff from the Harry Bikers recorder. I'm not gonna watch it. I've watched it several times. I'd still yet to make it, but
if you had a subscription where you had a meal kit, you go, I am going to make it because everything I need is there, and also, you know, there are maybe only 250 people watching Michael cooking or whatever, and you feel like you're part of a real-time cookery lesson and demonstration, and you actually get to eat it. So I think that's got a really good future in it.
No, I completely agree with you on that point, because I've always said, like, one of my biggest sort of passions at the minute is, like, I want people to find that passion back in food. Like, instead of just watching the TV shows or like watching Saturday Kitchen or this and that, to actually cook along and have these subscriptions, and it lowers down on the waste as well. It's very, like, it's more sustainable for people rather to do the weekly shop. They just have that meal there and you cook along with the chef, and you do feel so much more involved.
You do, and you know, it's something that you can tell your mates. You know, I cooked a foie gras and torchon with Michael O'Hare last night with strawberry jam and pineapple dust or something. But it's something. It's very funny actually, because there's the appetite amongst people in the UK for food products, food programs is enormous, and people love engaging with food, and I really do think that cooking market has got some legs, and it would be really interesting for me to see where that is in 10 years' time, because I think there could be some really extraordinary. You know, I think almost you could go into a supermarket, a Sapvane's cook-along kit, and pay for it at the supermarket checkout, and then you know you'll have a time to log on to his Instagram and watch him cook it live. And it's a great extra form of income for the restaurant. You know, an extra, like, you know, there was a chef I was talking to who's going to carry on with his takeout meals, but because he's got his brigade back to run his restaurant, he's going to have to employ 2 more people to help the takeout. So that's amazing. He's created employment at a time when, you know, there's mass unemployment. So it's been fascinating to see how certain people in the industry have really taken the bull by the horns and remodeled and come up with great ideas. And I think some exciting things with Marcus.
No, completely. It's very strange to see how from even my grandparent generation, they sort of looked at hospitality as it was a second choice career, whereas now people are actually really aiming to go down to, because they can see how many opportunities you can have, how many places you can work alongside some of the great chefs that you can get so much information from. And there is a huge spike of people from younger generations that you can see that they want to go down and do Top Door, or even just a Master Chef, or like British Bake Off, or the British Menu, all these like bigger names. But even the smaller competitions, it really builds them up to do that, and just to let them see that is truly inspiring, and it keeps me going as well.
Yeah, no, it really is. Like I said, you know, it's an industry that you can pick up your bag and fly, well, in normal times, fly to another country and get a job like that, hospitality. And it might be that, you know, you could fly to Australia and just pick up a bar job, but that will tide you over until you found the job that you want to do, if it's in a kitchen or if it's in product development or whatever. There are very few industries that give the skills that hospitality gives.
Oh, definitely. Just like, I feel like we've been talking for ages, and I'm just like, I don't want to be like the one that's like, yeah, I was supposed to do 3 minutes, but now you're getting like 30.
Just like, God, she never stops talking.
No, at all. It's actually amazing, like, to have somebody that's like really well, like, does the interviews themselves. It's quite interesting to be all sitting around and interview.
Yeah.
But I hope that I've sort of done okay for you.